everybody. You already know it's Thursday, and we know what that means. It means let's talk photography, everybody. Let's get to it. Yeah. So this week we have a very special guest, but all my guests are special, so I hope they know that. Regardless, as many of you may know, if you aren't following me on social media, shame on you, okay? Make sure you go ahead and follow me on all the socials because I've been promoting this show for the past week, okay? So how dare you? So go ahead and follow me on Facebook. I am on Instagram, Threads, and I'm dancing, well, not really dancing, but I am sharing some pics on TikTok, and I am on Twitter. All right. So make sure you go ahead and follow me and give yourself a round of applause for doing just that. All the links are down below. Yes. So today, as I have been mentioning, I have a very special guest. We have studio lighting portrait photographer extraordinaire John Gress is going to be in the house. Come on. And with all that said, let's get to it.
Join me every Thursday on YouTube for another live show of Let's Talk Photography. We cover the latest news, interviews with today's industry leaders, tips, tricks, lighting, cameras, and the business of photography. My weekly live stream is all about crowd participation. You're encouraged to ask questions, talk about the cool camera gear you've got or the camera gear you want to get. Hell, you could just join our open panel discussion during our Q&A portion of the show. The cost of access to Let's Talk Photography is very, very low. For today only, I'm hosting a very low price of free $99 to subscribe and press that bell icon to get notifications of my upcoming live streams. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, so again, for those just tuning in, make sure you give yourself a round of applause. Yes. I'm very excited about today because this next guest is someone that at every show, we just go deep in the weeds about photography. He is so willing to share so much of his knowledge. He's willing to be here and put up with me for 60 minutes. Can you believe that? And also to answer some of your questions out there, or if you just want to tune in and just hang out, that's all right too. But before I introduce our guest, make sure you go ahead. Come on now. Smash that like, that share, subscribe, and you already know, hit that bell icon so that you get notifications for live streams like this, as well as other content that I will be posting. All right. I do want to let you know that you can go ahead and sign up to my free newsletter. All right. It's free $99, as I stated earlier. The link is in the description section down below. I send out a newsletter every 2 weeks. So this Monday, well, you'll be getting one. All right. So if you want to stay in the know, as well as updates to dates of fashion shows or photography events, I want to create a what do you call it? Like a database of photography events so that you can get out of the studio, get out of your comfort zone, meet other photographers, be inspired, be motivated. I'm going to help you with that. Sign up to my free newsletter and I will do my best to make that happen for all of you out there. Okay. All right. So now, my guest today doesn't really need an intro, but I'm going to do it anyway because I have 1 minute to kill. Let me get all my stuff together. Now, before I introduce him, real quick, I do want to let you know, I will be posting a review video for those who have trouble with recording quality audio when you're on the go. If you're recording audio, especially from your cell phone, your tablet, or from your laptop, this pair of microphones I've just tested. I'm going to share my review. You'll hear the before and after of the audio quality, and it's under $100. All right. So I'm going to share that review. Make sure you, again, subscribe to my channel so that you know when this video posts. But I'm telling you, good audio takes you so far. A lot of people will put up a lot of things when it comes to your video, but when it comes to audio, no way, Jose. Step your game up. All right. So I'm going to help you with that. I've checked out the stuff and I'm telling you, I've replaced a certain microphone for these for a very good reason. I'll share that with you later on. All right. Now, um, let me get to what's the next thing. Okay. I think we're good to go. Now, with all of that said, I want everybody to give a big, huge round of applause for my guest today, Mr. John Gress is in the house. Come on. Yeah, he got the Final Fantasy win right there. That's what he got, that intro. How's it going, John?
Pretty good. I'm interested in hearing about these microphones since I've got mine sitting down here.
Awesome.
Always something important when it comes to video production.
You know what? It's the one thing I consistently like. If you slip, people will let you know about it. It's the audio every time, and they can forgive you with all sorts of stuff. But that audio is the consistent thing people complain about. It's kind of like batteries. Can you really have too many batteries? You know what I mean? So with that said, they reached out. I checked them out. I wanted to make sure it's like good before I recommend them, and they are, for that price, cannot be beaten. 100%. I mean, matter of fact, can I show you something, John, real quick?
Sure.
So right here, this is the box, right? $79, man. $79. It comes with what do you call it? Windshields and whatnot, a charging case. Okay. And if you got an interview, well, you're ready to go. You got 2 of them in there. And it's kind of like the Hollylands, size of a quarter, but they're about half the price. And I took it out yesterday, and it was windier than hell in Oakland, and it was a champ. It did a good job.
Is it 32-bit float, or is it just regular, or what does it do?
Regular, has noise cancellation. I mean, it's $79, but I mean, for a pinch, oh yeah, it's a win. You can't beat the price. And I heard they're going to do it like a Black Friday sale, so it's going to be even cheaper or something. But I like them. Awesome. I was riding my e-bike, and I was stopping off just recording to see how it is outside in the real world. So anywho, with all that said, everybody, check out for that video. Now, John, I want to say thank you so much for coming to my humble podcast show. Thank you very much.
Definitely. I'm glad to be here.
I hope my sound effects won't be too obnoxious, but that is kind of the flavor of the show. So I don't know what to tell you. I've had people complain about it. I'm like, well, you could always just not watch. So that always, that's an option. So how have you been since I last saw you over at WPPI?
Well, it's been quite a while. So I feel like I've had a very busy summer. I went to Portugal. I did a bunch of workshops in a bunch of different cities. Like I just went to Orlando this last weekend. I've probably made 20 YouTube videos. I've been testing out all kinds of gear like yourself, trying out new techniques. It's just been a lot of fun. And soon I'm going to have a workshop in my studio, sort of an advanced 2-day workshop in a couple of weeks. And I'm looking forward to being home for that and home for the holidays and all of that good stuff. So what's been going on with you?
Well, I definitely haven't been as busy as you. Clearly, I didn't get to Portugal yet. And but excuse me, there we go. And let me put this up so folks can see you, because you said you have workshops, right? Everybody, go make sure you go ahead and check them out right over here. Okay, there we go. You can sign up to his workshop mailing list right there to stay informed about his upcoming portrait photography workshops. And I first met John in person at one of his workshops when he came to the Bay Area. Okay, so shout out to us. Yeah, a little gunshot fire. It is Oakland. So, and it was a really awesome workshop. I really love your explanation when it came to the lighting setups. That was phenomenal. Model choice, always superb. I always like that. And things you set up and what you were able to put together, anybody could do. It was like, how can I say? It wasn't overly complicated, but yet it was very effective, right? It got the result, and it really was. I love him to this day. I still have one of the photos I took there of your model on my website. So shout out to you. Okay. So I
And I'm guessing to Luan. That would be
of
my
course.
guess.
I mean, he's awesome, right? Let's be honest. He almost can't. I don't. Maybe you shot with him more, but can he take a bad photo? Really? I don't know.
Oh, probably not. No.
So with that said, everybody, go ahead and go over to John Gress. What is this? John Gress
It's actually Gress. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Gress. johngress.com/workshops for more information about what he's got going on. As he says, he has, as you can see here, single day workshops, 2-day workshops, and all sorts of stuff, and workshop giveaway as well. Okay.
And and if you go down a little further is the schedule after those 2 videos. And so
okay. So what do you have coming up? Help us streamline our vision.
So I have an advanced workshop in Chicago on the 16th and 17th of this month. That's 2 days long, and sort of anyone who attends can learn whatever it is that they want to learn. They can ask me to help them recreate a particular photo or that they've brought or that I created, something like that. And then I have my 1-day workshops coming up in why am I drawing a blank? In Charlotte on March 22nd, a little bit later on in Dallas and Las Vegas. And I'll also be in Dallas for Imaging USA and Las Vegas for WPPI as well. And I think that is in February and March of this year.
Well, shout out to you.
So you better be there too.
Well, I'll be there for WPPI because it seems to be a bit of a tradition. So come out and hang out. And honestly, like, I love coming to yours, supporting you. And I always take away a nugget or two, like, regardless. And or sometimes it gets a bit interactive, doesn't it? You know, stand up and stuff like that. And
I made you either be the photographer or the model, maybe both.
Well, whatever happens, I'm ready for it. And I'll make sure that I look camera ready for you. Okay. Now I have a couple of questions. Okay. Let's get to it. I have actually a gang of questions. Some of it might be generic, but I'm sure you'll be all right. For those that don't know you, or even those that do but don't know you, how did you first get into studio portrait photography? Because you have 20 years of experience, right? I read that on your website. I hope so, because I shared it. Yeah.
Yes. So I started off as a photojournalist, and I was doing that full time from 2001 on. It was sort of my part-time thing when I was going through college. I'm sorry, I gave the wrong dates. So I graduated from college in 2000, and during college I was working part-time as a photojournalist, and then it was my full-time job after that. And I did that mostly through about 2010, give or take. It's just that photojournalism for me started to be less and less of what I did, mostly because newspapers became less and less of a thing. And magazines also started to go out of business too at that time, at around 2008 to 2010. And prior to that, I was using lighting to photograph portraits of people that were in the news. Maybe they were famous people, or maybe they were just being profiled in a magazine for home builders or something like that. So I was doing that the entire time. But then in 2008, my friend asked me if I would teach him lighting because he wanted to be a fashion photographer. And so the very first night we went out, and he was the photographer and I was the model. And I was a little reluctant about it because I'm fairly camera shy. But eventually we ended up finding someone who wanted to have their photo taken, some aspiring models and actors that we found on a website called Model Mayhem. And we started working with them. And I found that I really enjoyed it because, unlike the people that I would photograph on my journalism assignments, they would actually sit there for a long time and let me perfect the lighting and try new things. And it was just so relaxing and so much fun. And so I sort of started to feel like I was finding what it was that I like to do. And about that same time, my friend said to me, you know, I want to go to Paris because I want to find myself. And I don't need to know all that technical stuff that you need to know for your job. I just want to feel the pictures, something like that. And so that was the end of me sort of teaching him lighting, but it was also the beginning of my journey working with models. And so I kept doing that throughout that housing recession from 2008 to 2010. And while my skills did start to improve greatly there at the beginning when I was working with lighting in about 1999, it sort of plateaued until I started to teach my friend, and then it went way up. And then I got into lighting for video from about 2010 to 2015, and I kind of plateaued. And then I had to get on, then I got onto Instagram and I had to start working with models again. And I kept testing and experimenting, and my skills just kept going up and up and up and up. And so it's one of the reasons why I always say, like, if you want to get better with your lighting or photography in general, like the best thing you can do is practice, because really that's the only way we get better. And so I love just finding pictures that I think that look interesting, that, has great lighting that I would like to try out and experiment. And normally I'll go out and I'll shoot those photos and I'll learn from the process, put a little bit of a spin on it, and make it my own. But I learn a new technique, I try something new, and I just keep building and building and building upon that. So I really feel quite lucky that I now get to make videos for YouTube and teach workshops and write magazine articles. And that's probably about half of what I do now, in addition to working with actors and models and businesses trying to create advertising content in order to sell whatever it is that they're selling.
Well, John, I tell you, one of the things I really enjoy about your work is how technically well executed it is consistently. And
Thank you.
I really love seeing your lighting. And in my mind, if I don't see the background part, I'm like, all right, what did he, I try to reverse engineer, right? And I always seem to pick something up and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I'll see something I didn't see before. One thing is, I'll share a little something. It's your hair lighting, how you do the hair lighting. And like the first photographer that showed me hair lighting compared to how I do it now, after seeing yours and stuff, I'm just, let truth be known, folks, totally different, right? Totally different. And it's because of your photos, because of your work. So it's very inspirational. Even though you might be looking for inspiration, you're inspiring others around you. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like you actually delved into numerous forms of media. You said video. Are you still doing video or no?
Mostly I'm just doing video for YouTube. I have done it for a few clients. Did I? I feel like I had a video client this year, but it had been an entire year between video clients for me. At one point in time, it was like 25% of what I did, and I would make videos to demonstrate hair products or to teach people. I've done a lot of things in the beauty industry, which will be like selling tools to make, to do hair, selling products to do hair, teaching stylists to do hair, those sorts of things. And so it all kind of blurs together, but that was a lot of the video that I was doing, as well as shooting a few events, but that's just sort of naturally trickled off, or fizzled out is the right word, over time. So now mostly I just make video for me, for YouTube, or for my members only platform, which is just the Academy with John Gress. So sort of like Patreon, it's just on my website though.
Awesome. Well, you're doing something right. So whatever works, keep working it, Let me ask, first, let me cover some of these comments. They're starting to build up here. All right, everybody, real quick, I want to say thank you, Vic, one of my moderators. Thank you very much for being in here, hanging out with John and I. Love that. We got Greg Corker in the house, a member of mine. Thank you very much. And we have Mark Man. Mark, there you go, Mark. On my way to coach basketball. Just want to say what's up. That's what's up, man. A lot of these guys, I'm sorry, John, they're not contributors, if it mattered. We got Vic back in here. We got J-Rod. I haven't seen Jay in a while, so thank you very much. We got my best friend, my buddy Derek. He's in here a lot. I'm trying to convince him to come down to WPPI. I'm like, bro, let's just do this. It's so beneficial. How do you feel about WPPI, or just going to those kind of conventions for new or emerging photographers? What do you think, John?
I think it's great because you can sort of, you can go to the classes, but you also can meet, new friends, build your own tribe, if you will, find people that you can, bounce ideas off of and just talk to and work through things. And, I definitely would go, if I was in a speaker, I would go every year, because you just get to see your friends basically, and make new ones in the process. And that's what I love the most about going to those conferences, be it WPPI or imaging. And if you look in the background, since you mentioned Nikon, I don't remember which side is which. Oh, there is a Canon on this shelf back here, which is the very first digital camera that I had, a Canon DCS3. It's not the exact one, but it's one like it. And there is a Nikon F3 with a motor drive back here. I'm a little agnostic.
That's awesome. I love it. I only have one fancy old school camera. It's this one right here. This little bad boy. Beep. I'm not sure what the hell is it. It's a something.
Is it an F2?
It's a FE. Is that something? FE, and I have the model number. My ex father-in-law gave it to me, and it's in mint condition. He's like, I have this. Do you want it? I was like, hell yeah, I want it. And have I used it once? Yes. Do you want to see the photos? You never will. Okay, they're blurry.
So I bought this Nikon F3 back here because I said in a video that I'm using the motor drive today because whatever the reason was. And somebody said in the comments, what's a motor drive? And then I had this horrific moment where I realized that the people who taught me used that camera professionally, which has a motor drive.
Oh my!
And that no one today knows who started in the last few years might know what a motor drive is.
I think a lot of people don't are give it another couple of years, they won't know what a DSLR is,
Yeah.
And so lo and behold, it's moving that fast. And I was taking pictures recently with my iPhone, and when I posted them, they thought I took it with a Nikon. And you know what? It's compressed, it's whatever. And when it's on iPhone, they all kind of look semi the same. And yeah, the lines are getting more blurrier by the minute. You know what I mean? So anywho, thank you everybody for tuning in. Cool. Vic says he's planning on WPPI. J-Rod's guess talking about WPPI as well. Okay, has anyone asked you to shoot with film?
So I started off using film, which is actually one of the reasons why I started off using a light meter, and I use them when I'm teaching. And a lot of times people are like, why are you using that thing? Well, because there was no window on the back of the camera when I started, even when I got my very first lights. And yeah, I owned that camera at the time, and I shot film at the time. Neither one of which had an LCD on the back. So I had to use the light meter to sort of figure out what my exposure was and get things right in the camera without being able to see what was happening. So that just sort of stuck with me even once cameras got screens. And it actually, the very last time that I shot film was about 2003, and it was on a Mamiya RB67. And I bought that camera with the intent that I was going to use it to shoot portraits of people, and that I was going to use a DSLR, a Canon D30 at the time. I don't remember if it's 30D or D30. I think 30D is the new camera, and I think D30 was the name of the camera back then. But very quickly, I just realized that it was like a pain in the ass for me to develop and scan the film. And so I gave it up pretty quickly, which I know a lot of people today like to shoot film, but I might be more into putting a style on there, which is probably going to not earn me any fans in this moment.
It's all right. If my guests could all ruffle some feathers, I would love it. Let me ask you this, because this is actually something I was actually wondering myself. What would you say are the key differences in approach when it's shooting in a studio environment compared to working outdoors? Because I see a majority of your photos are in studio, or am I wrong?
No, that's very true. In fact, when I started out, I remember that I didn't want to buy a C stand because I was like, oh, that's for studio photographers. I'm a location photographer, so I don't need that stuff. I'm just going to get this aluminum stand. And eventually I was like, oh, I want to have a boom. And then I got a boom, and it put a lot of pressure on that aluminum stand and actually bent it. And so then I ended up having to get C stands and that sort of thing. So originally I wanted everything to be environmental and I wanted to be on location. But then I think probably in that 2008 period, when I started finding models on Model Mayhem, I realized that, a lot of times here in Chicago, it's either too hot or too cold or too windy or too wet. And it would just be easier if I sort of did things in the studio rather than going on location all the time. And so it just sort of happened organically, maybe through being slightly lazy, maybe not. But it's not that I feel like one is better than the other. It's just that it's sort of just worked out that way. I don't know. Did that even answer the question?
No. I
I should probably do better.
No. I think you did. I mean, it just kind of just happened organically, and before you knew it, you just happened to be shooting more studio work than outdoor. And the Bay Area, the blessing that we have here is that it's generally decent weather year round, unless it's raining. So you could get away with a lot more outdoor. But look at this work here, everybody. Everybody take a look. This is what you could even try to grasp to understand how to execute these at one of his workshops. You definitely want to go. If you want to learn something and level up your game, his workshops is where it's at, everybody. Okay? Look at this. And everybody can do stuff like this. If you really just, first of all, have a good mentor like John, right? And second of all, really try to understand lighting. That's why I have John on this show or on my podcast right now, is because this is the name of the game, understanding the balance of light and shadow. And John is a master at it. His career speaks for itself, but most importantly, his work. This is the the headshots and beauty photography. Look at the sculpting of the jawline. That's awesome. I love that. And his eyes are super blue. Yeah, I love it. Let me go to your other stuff.
So a quick tip on getting the eyes to pop, I got from a photographer that I used to be, my studio was a floor away from his, and we would talk, an older photographer. He said like he would put a constant light on behind him so that the model's eyes would open fully. So if you're in kind of a dark room, it always helps to run the modeling lamps, or sorry, not open fully. It would cause the iris, I believe is the right part of the anatomy, to close and then the color to come out. So that's why I always try to use a modeling lamp, or if the room if it isn't very bright, I try to run the modeling lamp so that that will happen. So that's something.
So
that could help.
Closes is what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you put a bright light in someone's face, then their eye reacts like an iris on a camera and closes down, and that's when we see the most color.
That right there was worth you coming on to the show. Thank you very much. You may leave. No, that's actually a great tip. So there is a use for modeling lamps, folks. Can you believe it?
Yes. And if I got any of that wrong, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please do. But smash the like button before you do. No, this here, aside from his eyes, I love how the jawline is sculpted, right? I love that. I think that's magnificent. I mean, I'm sure he had a great jawline in general, but you just further enhanced it with the use of edge lighting in the shadow. Love it. That is
so I actually used a strip softbox over each shoulder and a strip box for his hair behind at like 45 degrees horizontal. And then I used a strip box boomed out over the camera vertically to light his face. So it's actually 4 different strip boxes for this shot, but that's what caused that light to fall off through here
on his
and
cheek.
Then so that's from the strip softbox just hitting his face there and then falling off, and then those edge lights, one over each shoulder, that's what's getting us that highlight on his neck. So and I actually came up with this idea because someone attending one of my workshops, I wasn't trying to make this a commercial, he actually
all good.
He said to me he described a photo that he wanted to create, And when we created it, it was that very first one that you see there, the black and white one to the left of what we're seeing now.
Hold on. Let me get to it. This
Yeah,
one?
that one. Yeah, so this is the same technique, and we came up with it during a workshop using those 4-strip softboxes.
Wow.
And now I think there might have been a light on the background, but I'm not sure. But
oh yeah, I see what you
doesn't
mean.
quite matter.
It's kind of I see what you mean, but the way you scolded him is pretty much the same way, and it looks fantastic. I like the black and white.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very strong and something elegant about the black and white. I like it. It's very timeless. This is cool too. You use a gobo or no?
Yeah, so it was like it was not exactly, I'm trying to remember. This was one of those shoots where I know that I was wearing a mask, so it was during 2020. And I think it was about a year after I got an optical snoot. And so I was just trying to use orange in the optical snoot, and I actually had to have one hand on the back of the light in order to point the stripe in just the right location as he moved his head. And then I lit him, the rest of his face was lit with a 4-foot octa with a blue gel inside. So kind of playing off of complementary colors, and then just trying to establish that mood there with the gels.
I love it. I do like it. And I do know the struggle because I was just shooting with an optical snoot like a couple of days ago. And I'm telling you, man, every time that model breathed, I'm like, don't breathe. I had to do the same exact thing. And I was trying to keep my nerves down and not yell, but like, you don't understand how annoying this is. But it's just the one shot. That's all you need. But it looks great. I love the mix of color. And I like the hair light, how you got him, because that really added that depth to pull him away from that background, you know, without kind of like falling into the blue ether there. So the hair light here, and
Thank you.
and it's a great model. You always have great model choices. This is fun. I like the colors here. Now this is cool.
Oh, I think we lost our screen share.
No, what? Hold on 1 second. Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go.
Yeah. So this is with an optical snoot too. I'm just using it a lot more. The other one was sharply focused. This one, so an optical snoot, just to back up, is there's a light that passes through this modifier thing that holds a gobo, which is just a metal stencil. And then on the other side of that is a lens. So the light goes through the stencil, and the shadow from that stencil goes into the lens, and then you're focusing that on your subject. Or more technically, you're sending the light through the stencil. It's then restricting the beam of light in the shape of the stencil into the lens, and then that image is being projected forward. So in this case, the lens, there's just a strip in a narrow slit, and that's the gobo that I'm using. And then the lens is very defocused, so it just looks like a shaft of light, essentially. So that's what's over there on camera left. And then I know that I obviously have a red edge light on both sides, and I think it's looking like there must be a light that's like in a beauty dish position that's blue, but I'm not remembering exactly at the moment.
And is this a GoPro camera right as well?
So that was actually before I got an optical snoot. And what I did was I went to Home Depot and I bought a piece of like radiator screen, which is maybe like 1 by 2 feet. And I held that between a light with no modifier and the model's face.
Okay.
So based on how close it is to the model, it will be more in focus than if it's further away. So it was probably close to being just out of the frame. And then the weirdest thing with this particular shoot was that when I did it, I actually had light showing up on the side of his nose there where it's currently black. And so I hated it. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant to say. I had the pattern from the radiator screen showing up on the camera left side of his nose where it's currently black. And I didn't want that because it was just too much. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up holding what in the darkroom would have been a dodge tool. So if you used Photoshop before, you look at the dodge tool and it looks like a lollipop. And that's because what people would do in the darkroom is that they would hold a stick or something with a circle on the end of it, and they would hold it between the negative and the paper with the light coming through the negative, through a lens onto the paper, and they would go like this, and that would make it so that the area passing under the dodge tool was darker. So I used that exact same concept on this shot, only I used it to block a portion of the light coming from the radiator screen. So in the darkroom, you would have been moving your hand constantly, so it didn't make a shadow. Here, I wanted there specifically to be a shadow. So I just precisely held that makeshift dodge tool that I made between the radiator screen and his face. Hopefully, did that make sense?
100%. And
Okay.
that's why it's perfectly covered. Like you could, because otherwise that grade would come all over, basically half his face.
Yeah, and it was actually a piece of cinefoil that I had at the end of a metal straw that I had a gaffer tape to the end of a metal straw, and I just formed the cinefoil into the exact shape that I needed to block just the right part of his face.
Well, that was awesome. I mean, that's well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that looks really cool, especially with the story attached. So shout out to you and shout out to film photography. So there you go. Some tricks never die, right? Let me look at your other photos here. Oh, now this is, come on, man. This is pretty cool. Feel free to break this down.
So what I love about this and why I'm laughing is because like 10% of people see this and go, why are there reflections of the light in his glasses? That's distracting. And it's like, because I put them there on purpose. So it's actually kind of, I mean, I thought it was kind of funny, but the reason
No, I
try it.
I
Oh, no,
agree.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was saying I agree with you. It was like it's because I intentionally put it there. That's why.
Yeah.
And
now sometimes I screw up and things are there where they shouldn't be. Don't think I'm implying some infallibility. It was just that in this particular instance, like they're on there on purpose. So it took me a second to remember what I did. And I'm not remembering the inspiration for this image, but the way that I lit it was that I put a Mola Rayo, which is like a 16-inch beauty dish. So basically just a big hard reflector out there over the camera pointed down, and that created the shadow from the hat on his face. Now I remember. So the series of images that I saw, they involved a hard light like that coming from the top, and then they involved another light that was sort of next to the camera or behind the camera, pointed forward, filling in the shadow. So that hard light from the top created a shadow from the brim of the hat, and then the other light came in and preserved the details in the shadow areas. So the spin that I put on this image after I found that inspiration image was to add a beauty dish as my fill source with a sock over the front of it. And I knew that would give me a perfectly white circle that would show up in his round glasses. So when I processed this image in post, I actually dodged the reflections in his glasses, I think by, let's say, 2 stops in order to really make that white pop a little bit more. And I'm guessing there's also a hat light coming from the back, but I can't really tell from here. But I guess you'll let me know.
I want to say yes. The way it's
okay
lit toward the back more seems to be just a smidge hotter, and so maybe yes. But I'll tell you about the glasses. At least my opinion. I think the glasses is why this photo is killer. Of course, he's sharp. It looks great. Lighting is great. I do like that shadow. Adds a little mysterioso, right? The way you played on that shadow. But that looks hypnotic. That looks like what was it? Old school steampunky. It's kind of that vibe, and that's what draws you in is because you left that there. I think would have been too dark with the shadow on around his face, on the forehead, underneath the hat, and then a dark pair of glasses. It would have been kind of like, yeah, a little bit dark. So yeah, I think you did the right thing personally. I love this photo.
Thank
So
you.
um
There's a related image. I'm going to see if it's on my website.
please do. In the meantime, let me answer some get to these comments, okay? Boom. All right, everybody. Cool. Wow, look at this. Everybody's okay. Let's get to the top here. We got a lot going on. Hey, EF Sue, good to see you. Really appreciate it. My last film camera was a Canon A2. Yep, there you go. Shout out to you. Film, it gives me warm feelings to see other people use it. Absolutely, Greg. Thank you very much. Let's see. Thank you, J Rod. Have a good evening. Glad to see you here. Once you set up multiple lights, you can go back. Exactly. You could always dial back. Why not? Oh, look who's here. Simon. Shout out to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he jumps on the stream from time to time for sure. Internationally. 10,000 k-watts modeling light. Yeah, go for it. Burn all our hair. Culture Invasion Podcast. Great. Robert Silver-Photography. Peace to the chat. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Okay. Just like a projector. Exactly. I love Gobo. I'm still learning to like perfect it, but you know, after a few thousand shots, I'll get the one I want, and that's the one you face. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, I feel the same way. It's like I use it sometimes and it's like, oh, this really didn't work. And then other times I'm like, oh, this is great. So yeah, it's just one of those things. And it's probably less is more. They make them with all those crazy patterns, and I think they probably look a mess. Like I find myself just using the ones I have now. The one I have now, it has blades in it as 4 like putty knives that you can slide in. And so I'll use that to like make a slit or make a triangle, like a non-equilateral triangle. And I'll use that a lot of the times, which is probably better than using the gobos. But the 4 blades go in the same, they slide in the same area where you slide the gobo. So it's still the same way that it still works the same way I was describing earlier of light, gobo, lens, person.
So. You know, I tried using those little putty knife looking things, and I just don't have the patience. I just figure out which gobo I want and maybe add tape to take away, or you know what I mean? So shout out to you for the patience. Let's see here.
I actually have one that's like a moon and a bunch of stars. And on the shoot that I did with the same guy we were talking about earlier, with the white blonde hair, on that same shoot, I actually took that gobo with the moon and stars and used gaffer tape. Yeah, that guy. I used gaffer tape to cover up everything but one of the stars, and then I put that on his eye.
Oh, so how did that work out?
It worked out really well. So, you know, as long as you don't have a halogen modeling lamp, you can probably combine gaffer tape and gobos and do whatever you want.
Wow. And when you do gobo, do you use a modeling light when you're setting it up before you flash, or how do you do it?
So it's always a mix of like, yes, it's okay. So it depends on how isolated the light is on their face, because if it's just like their entire body and I'm making a slit like this going from head to toe, like I'm not going to need to keep watching where it's landing all the time. If it's a headshot, I'm almost always going to have that modeling lamp on, because I need to make sure that it like falls in just the right place. This last weekend, I was putting one of those triangles on the model's face, and I had to like really look at him to make sure that the edges of my projection were like hitting him on the edges of his pupils, so that it would fall in just the right spot. And it was another one of those things where I was grabbing the light with one hand and shooting on a camera stand with the other, however that would work this way.
So the modeling light did really assist you to be like, okay, I'm pretty much in the pocket. Let's go and take that photo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And usually I might have that light turned down, but I'll turn the modeling lamp all the way up.
Okay.
Otherwise you can't see it. But
yeah, for sure. Compared to the flash, that's for sure. I was spraying and praying. I didn't use a modeling lamp, and I was just like, I would use the flash to test it and see where it's hitting and be like, okay, ready? And then do it. You know what I mean? And so I
Well,
guess
sometimes the room I'm in is so bright that I actually do have to do that. Like the modeling lamp, it won't even register, because the thing about these not beauty dishes, optical snoots, is that they absorb so much light that the light is like, even if you put 500 watt seconds in there, you might only be able to shoot at like f4 at 100 ISO, give or take. So yeah, so sometimes like the modeling lamp projection is really dim and you just have to fire the strobe and see what happens.
So okay, I don't feel as bad anymore. Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. That was
Well,
that was
when I got this in the same one in 2019, I didn't have LED modeling lamps. And so that was the other thing, like practically melt the entire thing if you left the modeling lamp on.
Yeah, I'm not gonna anyway. I've made a mistake before, and did like one time I turned it on. I turned on the monolight and forgot the lamp turns on, and I left the cover on there. Do the math. It was a melty mess, and the client or the model or what was it? I think it was a client came into the studio, and I just acted like, "Oh my God, what a accident! We better." And I just played it off, and but it was totally my fault. With all that
so
said,
when I was using a Photech soft lighter, they have so it's an umbrella with a cover that goes over the front of it, and there's like a nylon sock at the middle, and that nylon sock like goes around your strobe, so it makes a good seal, and it's adaptable to any size light that you put in there. So at the time I had these ProPhoto D1s, and I slid the thing over there, and I started shooting a headshot of my friend, and I had a halogen modeling lamp, and I was running it. And in the middle of me shooting him, we started to smell something. And what happened was that sock had like slipped and came in contact with the modeling lamp and started on fire.
Oh my
God.
God.
So like the entire sock there were flames coming off the sock.
Oh man. Yeah, we've all been see folks, we're just letting you know, regardless of the skill, it happens to the best of us, and thank God they don't cost a whole lot, but those
it's like I always tell people to use a sandbag, keep things safe, because it's like there's two moments where I stretched it and we're like, oh, it'll be fine, and like had the light fall over and broke the light.
Oh, now, do you prefer LED or the halogen modeling lamps?
Oh, definitely the LED one, because I think that we probably were burning our modifiers and making them turn yellow. So that's one thing. Yeah. And then,
but are the LEDs
then just the heat for us that we have to touch and stuff.
But like, how bright are the LEDs compared to the halogens? Halogens were 150 watt, right? Lamps.
Well, supposedly they're both the equivalent of 300 watts.
Copy. Okay.
Well, okay. So it depends on the modeling lamp that you've got now that's LED. But the ones that I have, they were 300 watts of halogen, and the LEDs are supposed to be the equivalent of the same thing.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I didn't measure it, so we'll just believe it.
I know my first series of Godox 8600s were not 150 watt. Okay. And I did notice a difference, and I'd be like, gosh, and I missed that nice brightness of those 150 watt halogens. But then again, things burnt up. So there you go. That's what you get. All right, let's see. We're here. Oh, yes, it definitely was steampunk. Laser eyes. You got a lot of compliments, John, let me tell you. And I know these are not from me.
Thank you.
So everybody, make sure you go. I mean, we're going through his photo. Excuse me. We're going through his photos, but he has his workshops coming up. Make sure you go follow him on Instagram. He posts a lot on there about his upcoming workshops, but also you could DM him. I'm guessing, is that cool if they have a question? Is that all right, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
But most importantly, go to his website. Let me show you right here, and just click on photography workshops. Now, how easy is that? Right there, easy peasy lemon squeezy. and you could be one of the many people in his photos, like right here. But most importantly, you can find out his information because he's always dotting across this country. It's crazy. Okay, that's why I'm so happy to have get you tied down for at least an hour for my show. So I really appreciate it. But here you go: Dallas, Vegas, Chicago, Charlotte, and you're based in Chicago, correct?
Yeah, so I might have to come back to San Francisco for the first time since I met you.
Dude, that's been like it's got to been four years or something, right?
It was in the before time. It was 2019.
Golly, I had a little bit more black hair. I promise. So, but nonetheless, yeah, that was actually a cool spot, Mama Dog Studio. You should see how much stuff they've been doing since then. Ridiculous amount of video production. Yeah, they've done some legit stuff. I went to some video, what is it? Bay Area filmmaking industry events at that place, and yeah, they're very well tapped now. So you should definitely reach back out to them. I think they would benefit from your workshops being hosted there again. Cool. And if you do, let me know. Okay, you know me. I'll gladly help support and promote and let folks know about what you got going on in there.
I'll be asking you about the date before I ask them.
Copy that. There you go. I love that. Let's get back to the questions here. Oh, do we have a comment? Let me see if we have anything there. Oh, okay. We do have a question. Yeah. Wow. 300 watt modeling lamp. My 30 watt. You better take that thing back. All right.
Well, if it's LED, that's probably the same.
Between what? Between
the LED, probably multiply the LED by 8 or 10, and it would equal the halogen number.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I just learned something.
I guess.
Maybe I did. No. King Crook comes in. He's a video guy. Are you using Arbiter for lighting? What is that?
Ari?
Yeah, Arbiter for lighting? Huh. I don't think so, because we're both sitting there with question marks on our face. So sorry, King Crook. He's a huge video production guy. So, and cosplay takes over too. Yeah, there you go. All right, so let's get back to my questions.
Yes, so I'm using Elinchrom strobes most of the time, although sometimes I use Nanlite Pavo tubes and mix those with strobes, or I mix them with their monolights as well. So when I'm shooting photos, when I'm shooting for like this video of me right now, I'm lit with a Nanlite Para 90 and an FS 150, and it's actually turned down to 4%. So like just ridiculously low. But then when I'm doing videos in my studio, I'm using a compact 200 to light the set from one way and a FS 750 to light the set from the other way.
I like your light
in a softbox, but yeah.
Yeah, I love your use of shadow. It really makes you pop and brings it closer.
Thanks.
You know? Yeah, I really like it. Now, why Elinchrom? You mentioned Photo earlier. Why that brand specifically are you using them right now?
Well, oddly enough, it has to do with a fire and a light meter, but those two things were separate.
Wait.
So
fire, like fire department fire?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I had the Pro Photo lights, I was using a combination of, I had D1s. Is this true? No, it's not true. I had Pro heads and a 7 series Pro pack. I had two of those and 4 heads, I think at first, or 5 heads, something like that. Then I was like, this is a little too much power in a beauty dish at minimum power. I think I need these D1 lights. So then I went and sold some stuff and bought those, and I had those as well. And then I was like, I think I need these Pro heads to use in beauty dishes and in soft boxes, because I kind of learned that when you put the D1 head in a beauty dish, it doesn't, and that's, step back. A D1 is the monolights they have where the face is flat. So I learned that when you put those in the beauty dish, because the flash tube isn't out, it doesn't really fill the beauty dish correctly and the light is flatter. So then I wanted to use those Pro heads again, because of that. I also found that if you put the D1s in a 5-foot octa, the Pro Photo 5-foot octa, you get a 3-foot hotspot in the middle, and it doesn't like fill out the modifier all the way to the edges. So I found that when I was using large modifiers, I wanted to use the Pro heads as well. Now, at the time, the 8 or 10 series was like the new one, and those were costing $10,000 or $12,000. So I wasn't about to do that. So I was buying the Pro 6 and Pro 7 packs on the used market, which were about 30 years old. And one time I was doing this beauty shoot for a hair client, and I took a picture and I heard this sound, and I was like, what was that? And then I took another photo and I realized it was the pack off to my right. And then I was like, okay, well, let's see if it happens again. So I took a third photo, and that pack started smoking. So what was happening was that when you connect a flash head and a flash pack together, it's usually a series of cables that a series of pins that stick out in the head, and like a honeycomb thing that receives them in the pack. And so one of those pins or one of those sockets became damaged at some point because it had 30 years of electricity going through it. And that became a fail point. And that then damaged the corresponding part. So I don't know if it was the socket or the pin, but regardless, that pin or socket damaged the other socket or pin. And so then when I took that cable and I plugged it into the next pack, I spread it like a disease to all 3 of my packs. And then I plugged all of my heads in all of those packs, and it spread, it damaged all of the head cables. And so it was just a matter of time before something really went wrong and this electrical fire started. And then I realized that I needed to get all of my head cables and all of my packs repaired. And at the time, I had started using these Elinchrom soft boxes because I found that they were more even than the Pro Photos soft boxes, that when you put a head in there and you take a picture of the front of the softbox, they were completely even edge to edge. And I just like the quality of light. And so I thought, well, what if I look at getting Elinchrom monolights, because the flash tube is exposed, so they'll go in a beauty dish and light a beauty dish correctly. And the flash tube is also exposed, so they'll probably spread out and light the modifiers well. And the modifiers were also really even in the first place. So that had me intrigued. And then when I went to Imaging USA to give another clapback, if you will, I saw that there was a light meter that Sekonic made that had a radio transmitter inside, and it was able to talk to the Elinchrom lights. So the idea that I already liked the soft boxes, the flash tube was exposed on the heads, and I could buy a light meter where I could dial in like Elinchrom channel 1, group 3, and I could push the button on the side and it would measure group 3. And then I could look at the light meter and I could change the power of group 3 right on the light meter. It was like really cool and revolutionary. So between the fire and the light meter, I decided that I would switch over to Elinchrom, and then I've been using them ever since, which I think is about 2019, around March or April or so, 2019 until now. So that's how I ended up switching over to Elinchrom. So the short story is that I loved their modifiers at first, and then I decided to give the lights a try, and the light meter technology sealed the deal as well.
So the light modifier by itself, Pro Photo compared to Elinchrom, you notice the evenness of light, distribution of light. Now that was because of the modifier or the monolights, or the design of the monolights themselves from the companies. What was it that was affecting that?
I'm being cautious because I don't want to say something slightly untrue, but I believe it to be true. Okay, so for instance, when I had the Elinchrom 39-inch octa and I put the Pro Photo D1 head in it, it was completely even edge to edge. When I took that D1 head and I put it in the Pro Photo Octa, and I took a picture of the front of that Octa, I could tell that the middle 3 feet was bright, and then the light fell off. And it's because with those D1 heads or the B series heads, they have a 70-degree beam angle, give or take, coming out of there. Like it's a narrow beam of light. So that was hitting the diffusion material in the softbox and not spreading out very well. Whereas in the Elinchrom modifier that I was testing, it was spreading out much better. Where I'm hesitating. Oh, okay. No, this is a good direct. This is not exactly a direct comparison, but a close direct comparison. I then had the Elinchrom 190 centimeter Octa, so bigger than the Pro Photo 5-foot Octa. And when I put the D1 head in there, it was actually pretty even, like edge to edge. So it was more even in that Elinchrom modifier than it was in the Pro Photo 5-foot Octa.
Wow.
Now, there is some nuanced difference in the design that would make it more even. Where I'm hesitating is I don't want to say that I put the Elinchrom head and the Pro Photo head in the exact same modifier and then saw the results, because I don't believe that I actually did that. I know that when I was testing the Pro Photo light in different modifiers, I put it in Elinchrom modifiers and I saw that it was more even in those modifiers.
Interesting.
I know that I also tested a Broncolor Ceros at the time when I had Pro Photo lights, and I remember putting them both in a Photech soft lighter, and I could see that the Broncolor Ceros, which has an exposed flash tube, was more even than the Pro Photo D1 in the same modifier.
So would you recommend new photographers out there to lean toward monolights that have the flash tube exposed versus not?
I think so. The reason I'm hesitating, the reason maybe I'm hesitating is because I think I saw an F-Stoppers video lately where they tested it out and saw that the only real difference that you could see in photos in the lights that they tested was in a beauty dish. And other than that, you couldn't really see it. So maybe that unevenness in the softbox with the D1 head and the 5-foot Octa wasn't really a big deal, or that noticeable of a difference, let's say. But definitely, like, I know that when I put the Pro head and the D1 head in Pro Photo's beauty dish, I could tell that there was like the contrast was much higher in the Pro head than it was in the D1 head. Since then, I've actually tested beauty dishes more extensively, the Elinchrom beauty dishes with the Elinchrom lights, and I can see that what happens in those modifiers is that the beams of light come out from the flash tube in a fairly wide beam angle, and they hit the sides of the beauty dish and the lip of the beauty dish, and then they come back at like a 45-degree angle towards the model's face. So I could see where if you have a light that's just pushing light forward, not pushing light to the sides and forward, that it would make a big difference when it goes into that beauty dish, because it's probably not hitting the sides of the modifier at the right angle to push it back forward.
Totally.
So
that concentration.
Yeah. So, and you can see it too if you take a beauty dish. Okay, so there's a beauty dish video on my YouTube channel where I show this, but just like in general, what I did is I took a beauty dish. I'm looking for an analog in the room that will help me at the moment.
Pressure's on.
No. Okay, let's say that my glasses here are the beauty dish, and I put it against a black card. And so then what I did was I then took a photo from the angle that you guys are at of this object. Hopefully I covered my face enough. And then what I could see was that there was a totally screwed this up. Okay, so what happened is I took a picture of the light from the beauty dish hitting the black card from the angle where you are, and I could see where the light was hitting the black card. And
Mm,
that's how I could see that light from the beauty dish, when you're using a beauty dish, comes out like in the shape of a cone, that it hits the sides of the modifier and then it goes back towards the subject, and the beams of light converge on the subject's face about the same distance from the modifier as the diameter of the modifier. It's going to be different on every modifier. But when you put a grid on a beauty dish, what happens is that the grid itself blocks all of the diagonal beams, and the light only goes forward in a very small column. So, and that's with a beauty dish with that's with a light in the beauty dish with an exposed flash tube. So what I would expect is if you put that, if I did the same test with a D1, and I haven't done that test, or a B10 or any of those lights, what I would expect is that you'd have kind of a very narrow beam of light going forward. And that cross-section test, if you will, with one of those heads would probably look a lot different than it would with a light with an exposed flash tube. So hopefully I haven't lost everyone with that
no,
explanation.
I followed along pretty clearly. I think you did a great job. I'm just
Thank you.
fascinated because I never really gone that deep when it comes to this, and now I'm gonna be looking at my modifiers and the lighting. Thankfully, the 8600s, they are very well exposed, you know, they're really at the front, but but when I look at, let's say, the lighting head of the 8400s, which has that flat recessed flash tube, kinda like the Pro Photos, it gets me thinking about how light travels and how when it leaves the source, how it does affect when going through the modifier. So this is actually really I'm actually I mean, I'm nerding out listening to it, but I don't let's check the
Well,
comments real
I thought all the Godox lights had the tube out, so now I've learned something new.
Yeah, they have one where it's like flat, kinda like the Pro Photo where it's round, and I think you can take
Okay.
it off and add something, but I don't have the light itself, but the, yeah, not all of them are. So there you go.
Okay. I would guess that those would do well like in a 3-foot modifier. 3
Mm,
foot or smaller modifier and not a beauty dish. That's what I would guess that light would be best for, based on my experience with the Pro Photo lights.
okay, this is everybody, he's dropping knowledge. If you just slow down and listen, he's it's very I pick up everything he's saying because I'm walking it, at least you're walking me through it and I'm walking with you, you know? And I could see what you're saying, especially the way light travels and how it's coming out. If it's more focused, basically, versus not so focused. It's very broad and it's hitting everything. And these are things we need to learn, photographers, if you actually are trying to really understand lighting itself. And this, oh, it's almost a master class you're giving us here with those glasses and the iPhone. Uh, that was great.
Well, thank you. You know, if you, I was thinking I didn't have my edge lighting on at the moment in this shot. What I was about to say was that if you were to use a softbox in order to create an edge light, and that light in the softbox wasn't very spread out, and it was very focused in the middle of the softbox, and I've seen this before in pictures, you'll see that it's like dim, 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 not so dim, bright, and then it starts to dim and dim and dim and dim. And you'll see that there's like a bright section on the person's arm or on the person's head, but it doesn't extend any lower. And so having more even light, like in a kicker, if you've got it back on either side, like that's really going to benefit you in having better lighting results, top to bottom. So it could be more important in a situation like that too. I'll use a strip softbox for a hair light a lot of times, so I can just imagine. And granted, the kicker thing I just talked about, I've seen that in people's photos. Like it's very distinctive. I haven't seen this in someone's hair light that I know of, but I could think about it in theory based on what I saw from the strip lights coming from over their shoulder.
Mhm.
I could see it where the top of the head would be significantly brighter than the shoulders if that light from the modifier is condensed in the middle.
Yes. And that's why I what you just shared with us, I think for folks is extremely important. No, seriously, because it's those minute differences that could maybe help you understand why you're struggling, right? You're like, why is that happening? And it may not be you. It actually may
Yeah.
be the light source you're using. And so that's why I'm saying I really appreciate you sharing this because it's got me thinking how I'm using my light my not only light sources, but which light modifier that will complement it best. And I was curious why someone at your stature, your understanding of lighting and your professionalism, why you're using Elinchrom versus Profoto, because a lot of new photographers, Profoto is like the holy grail, right? That's what you're kind of like, oh, I wish I could afford them. And so that's why I'm asking about Elinchrom and what was your decision making. So this is great. So I appreciate that. Um,
Well, I mean, part of that decision making too was I was like, well, I could get all new Elinchrom stuff for the price for the same amount that I'll get by selling all this pro photo stuff on eBay.
oh,
So that was another thing too. It was like, so, um, but yeah, the more that the more, while I did just demonstrate how a particular gear thing can improve your shot, the more that I look at things and learn, it's like the gear stuff, like having an even light. Yes, that is important. Having a beauty dish that actually functions the way it's supposed to function is important. Having a light that is not green or not blue or something like that. Those things are important. But for the most part, what's really important is the ideas we come up with or the ideas that we're stealing and the direction we're taking things, what we put in the box when we hold the camera up to our eye, not really how we what gear we're using to light it or that sort of thing. And even most of the time, sometimes it's not even the lens that we're using actually isn't that important, because so much of the time in the studio we're shooting at f8 or f11, and it doesn't matter if you have
doesn't
the
it?
$200 50 or the $2,000 50.
100%. Yeah, that's why like Lindsay Adler, I remember she used a 24 to 105 f4 for super long in the studio, and I don't think we can complain about her work. And so there you go. And yeah, clients don't know, they just know the results. So
Yeah,
um
so most of the time I actually use a 70 to 200 f4.
really,
So
why is that?
yeah, well, so in my studio for photographing men full body, I need to shoot at 70 millimeters because I'm against a wall. I would probably rather shoot at 85 because it would be compressed a little better, and I'd rather just use my 85 millimeter lens all the time, but I can't always. If
Mm,
I'm photographing women full body in the same situation, I can use an 85 all the time. When I go and do my workshops, though, I have no idea how much depth I'm going to have. So I end up using that zoom most of the time.
wow. Okay, well there you go.
But
Little nugget right there. F4, you'll
but
be
maybe
on.
I should have just kept the 24 to 105 that I sold last week and
Oh,
use that.
there you go. Well, you live and you learn, right? Hey, you
So
know what?
I actually had to buy the new Canon R5 Mark II camera with the 24 to 105. That was the only way I could buy it.
Just
And I
to get
sold
the
the lens
lens?
on eBay.
Ah, shoot. Okay, gotcha. I think that focal range lens is so good to have just because it's so versatile. When I travel, like I have the 24 to 120 f4. I love it. And it's
Yeah. So
Simon has a question. Do light meters still matter in today's photography? Ooh, that's a good question.
So a light meter can help you get repeatable results that you can do over and over again. So if you are, um, let's say you get hired to photograph all of the pilots at an airline, but you have to do it at 3 different airports and you need all of the photos to look exactly the same, then a light meter is really going to save you because you'll be able to know exactly how bright your hair light is, exactly how bright their face is, and exactly how bright the fill is, for instance, or the edge light that you're using. Because even though you might write down the power input settings you might not be exactly at the same distance to the person's face, and so that might not work. You also might be in a room with a low white ceiling, and that's going to change the fill ratios a lot in the shot compared to if you have a high dark ceiling. Or you might be in a very small conference room, or you might be in an airplane hangar. So you never know what the environment is. So having the light meter would let you meter what that main light is, what the fill source, how bright the fill is, how bright the hair light is, how bright the edge light is, all of those things, or maybe how bright the background light is. And then you could repeat that in multiple places. The other thing is that you might have a general idea of what you think your lighting ratios will be based on past experience. So for me, most of the time, my main light is equal to the camera's exposure. And so I would meter this light. I would say, okay, I want to shoot at f8 at 100 ISO. So I would just start metering this light and turning it up or down until my meter said f8 at 100 ISO. Then what I would do is usually add a hair light or an edge light to the other side, and I would have that be 2 stops darker than the light on my face, or the subject's face. So that light would meter at f4. Which means that it's actually 2 stops underexposed if I were to take a picture of the back of my head from this direction. But that's how I would set it up usually. And then I would look at it on the camera and see if it looks good. So that's going to just speed up my workflow and make that work. The other thing too is that sometimes I will use multiple colored gels. And in that instance, well, if you've ever seen those photos where somebody is lit with neutral light, but they have rainbow shadows, it's because they've actually used either cyan, magenta, and yellow lights coming at them, or red, green, and blue lights coming at them. And when you do a shot like that, each one of those lights has to have the same exposure on the person in order for them to cancel each other out where they overlap. And that's what's going to give you that neutral light on the person. And then the area of the wall behind them where only the green light or magenta light can be seen from that vantage point, that's where the light is going to be magenta or green. I believe those are the 2 colors I just said. So, those situations are going to be critical. So repeatable results, speeding up your workflow, and then scientifically matching gels would be really the third reason. But if you can't afford one or you don't have one, you can just use trial and error. It's just going to take you a little bit longer, probably. So
I like that you mentioned that consistency, and it speeds up the workflow, right? So if you, like you said, if you wrote down the power that you want or the settings, and then you go into a different environment other than your studio, you could dial that in much quicker. So I still use a light meter, and it's not as fancy as yours. Mine only takes 1 AA. It's this iconic, I think 302 or something.
308.
308.
Yeah.
And
that's the one that I used for 20 plus years. So it's great.
It gets the job done, So I wish I could light my flashes with it. That'd be awesome.
So there is a Godox version of the 858, and that meter also, I use the Elinchrom version of that meter, but that meter also has a spot meter if you do landscapes. Probably not, but it also measures flash duration, which is how quick your light is pulsing, which will help you know how to freeze action. And then it will also tell you how bright your light is in high-speed sync. So maybe you won't need to take multiple test shots when you're using manual exposure and high-speed sync. You can actually use the meter to figure it out.
To do the work. So, I remember you explaining that at WPPI, I believe the last year's. And
right. I had the dancer jumping.
Yeah. And you had like a diagram to show the light fall off and all this, and where it's actually effective more versus what we think it is. And yeah, you broke that down pretty well at WPPI.
I taught an entire class and took 9 photos during the class.
Yeah, but I understood it, but it was pretty cool. To step back,
I mostly use these 2 lenses when I'm not using my 85.
Wait, hold on. Let's get you up here. Okay, share those lenses with folks. What is it?
So the 28 to 70 f2.
Okay.
Hopefully that was in focus. Oh, sorry. I didn't even notice that that was blocking.
It was, but it was black.
Yeah, I know.
Cool.
That's what I meant. I was blocking the light. So 28 to 70 f2, and then the 70 to 200 f4.
Oh, wow.
So those are the two I'm using most of the time.
Wow. Okay. So there you go.
Or I
folks.
use an 85-1.2. But yeah.
And 85. Now, but you're shooting obviously f8 or f10 or whatever it is that you're doing when you use that 85.
I'm sorry. I think I said f2. I use it 85-1.2, and I'll mostly I'm going to use it at like f8 or f11. So if I'm shooting headshots and like, okay, so I just did photos for a hairstylist competition for someone. So I was using the 85-1.2 at f11, and the reason I was shooting at f11 is because I needed the entire head to be sharp and every part of the haircut to be visible. So lenses are sharpest usually between 5, 6, and 8, depending on the lens. But if you stop down more, you'll get more stuff in focus from, their eyes to the tip of their nose and past their ear if you're shooting at f11 or so and you're shooting, a headshot. Or I will sometimes in the studio shoot at 1.2 because I just want them to be really isolated from the background. Or maybe I'll photograph like a business headshot against the windows in my studio. So it gives this outside inside kind of thing going on as well.
Do you shoot freehand or a tripod?
Okay, so when the R5 Mark I came out in whatever year that was, in 2020, I realized that it had an electronic level in there, and I realized that I was actually looking at the back of the screen instead of looking through the camera. And it's funny because prior to that, I would make fun of people who looked at the back of the screen and didn't look through the camera. But I realized pretty quickly that was the way that I was shooting. And I started using the electronic level because I would have to go, in order to prepare a client gallery, I might have to go straighten out like a bunch of photos because I would shoot every one of my photos slightly crooked to the right. And so I would use the electronic level and that would get it set. And then I was like, wait a minute, why am I tethering to this laptop over here and holding the camera and doing all this stuff? I could just use a tripod instead. And then I wouldn't have to worry about constantly, making sure I'm level. I'll just set the camera so it's level at the beginning and then leave it there. So I started using a tripod all the time. And then I got a camera stand from Studio Titan. And now I use a camera stand all the time. So I use one of their camera stands so that my camera and laptop are on the same crossbar. And I can just move the camera stand up or down. And it's always like, they're always together on the same plane, basically.
The computer and your camera.
Yeah. And then it's like a tripod on wheels and I can just roll it wherever I want to in the studio. And believe me, like before 2020, I would be like, no way would I want to shoot on a tripod. Like I want to be able to move where the person is and change my composition and do whatever I feel like on the fly. And then I realized like all I was doing was like shooting a bunch of crooked frames and wasting time in post. And I thought like, oh, I need to be more fluid. I need to be more flexible than the tripod head will allow me because I'm photographing these people and they're moving a lot. And then I started shooting close-ups of people and I realized that they're not moving that much. It just seems like they're moving a lot. So, I just leave the tripod head loose left or right. And that's all I have to do is pan a little here and a little there. And it works out great. Then I can, shoot with one hand on the camera and change the
model light,
the optical snoot with the other hand.
Yeah,
I'm doing that. Yeah.
Shout out to you. So do you now? Is that for full body portraits or just mainly headshots? Would you use that tripod?
Oh, either one. I just use it completely like all the time.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna try that. Do you
Yeah.
notice that your shots are more consistent because you're, like in terms of level, composition, etc.? Or like what other ways is the tripod helping you out besides the tilt part?
Yeah, so I would also just start shooting because I'm looking at the person's face and I wouldn't notice that their foot or their arm was like slightly off the background or
Mm,
something like that. And now that means, well, also, a lot of times I'm using a 7-foot canvas backdrop. And so I don't have a lot of like leeway left and right when shooting full body verticals. So I would just be focused on the person's face and then end up off the background. Well, now I have this conundrum when I'm delivering the client gallery. Like, do I chop their foot off with an arbitrary crop so that they aren't seeing the background or whatever junk is back there? Or do I just leave it as it is and, do the old, we'll fix it in post if you select this kind of thing. So now I don't have to worry about that. Like
mm.
everything is mostly framed correctly, and nothing is crooked for the most part. And so it just increases that precision. But also, like, you don't have to worry about having a tether cable going across the floor because the camera and the laptop are like next to each
Like,
other. Yeah, you don't have to worry about pulling the camera out of the
port there.
yanking the laptop off the table or tripping over the cord and yanking the camera off of whatever surface it's on and so forth. There are
Yeah.
plenty of times where I was tethering and I stepped on the tethering cable and pulled the camera out of my own hands. So
Uh,
yeah.
so that alleviated a lot of that.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna
absolutely.
I used to do more tripod for definitely beauty or like headshots just to like get the composition, and then I would direct the subject to maintain proper framing. And but then to your point, I was like, I want freedom. And then now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? Especially when I was doing a snoot, I was like, I don't want her to move, and
Yeah.
I want that composition. So yeah, maybe I'll start using a tripod a little bit more often just to get that more precision. Let me see if I have any comments real quick. We are all right, good light meters, good Albert. Oh, awesome. I really appreciate this comment right here. Where the heck did it go? Albert said something. Oh, okay. Photographer, everything is good here as I experiment weird stuff. Okay. But he mentioned something earlier. I'm trying to find his. Oh, here we go. Hey, Robert, it's fantastic. You have John. John, since his videos on lighting are amazing, among the very best on YouTube. So shout out to you, John. Yeah, I really like your stuff. Clearly. What else is there? Is there anything else? Oh, okay. Here we go. Here we go. We got a couple of things. Headshots. Okay. Rion comes in, says, what advice can you give on headshots? Is there anything you would like to share about that?
Uh,
Seems very broad question, though.
yeah.
Let me help narrow it down. If you're looking to get into headshot photography, what are like an advice you can give that was impactful for you that learned to level up your headshot game when you were in a younger stages?
Well, I think one thing that I heard that sort of one tip that I got that sort of changed the way that I shoot those headshots is the idea that if you're photographing a model, you probably want to stop down because they want to see what they would look like in an advertisement. But if you're photographing an actor, you probably want to shoot wide open because you want the person to be able to see what they look like on camera. So just those two ideas that maybe the actor headshot is more environmental and maybe the model headshot is more stop down and on a more solid background.
For that.
So
Oh, very interesting. That's actually a pretty cool tip. Okay.
yeah,
So,
like I hadn't thought about it. Someday I'll get into the chopping off the top of their head thing, but
oh, the here kind of a thing.
well, they'll be like they'll just cut off like the top inch of their head, and I see it. It looks really good. I just need to get over my OCD of having everything in the photo.
Ah, well, look at these. Look at this lighting, everybody. Got the OG lights in the back. I love, but I like the warmth it brings though. Oh, this is cool. What were you
Oh,
doing there?
thanks. So this one was I had a Nanlite Forza 60C, which is a RGB LED model light. Sorry, I knew I was going to screw that up. An LED RGB mono light that you can dial in any color that you want. So on this one, I put it on camera right and I dialed it to blue. And then I lit her face with a beauty dish on the blue light is on camera left. Sorry. On camera right is where I put a beauty dish to light her face. And I think I had a warm gel in there. So I was sort of playing with the idea that I would have warmer light on her and then cool light from this LED. Partially so that where the two of them overlapped on that neutral side of her face, they would cancel each other out. Not scientifically, but close enough. The other thing that I was doing here when I selected the colors was thinking about, I believe, tetradic color harmony, which is where you draw a square on the color wheel. And so orange, yellow, blue, and purple would be those four colors in the color harmony. But the main thing, though, or the main point here is that I was shooting at 1/4 of a second, and I was using that blue LED to burn in the ghost image of her. And then I was panning the camera back and forth while shooting, using the continuous shutter kind of. And so what would happen is I would record the ghost image with the LED and then switch to the other side. And I would have the flash fire and it would record the photo that you see of her. And I don't remember if I was going left to right or right to left. But I'm pretty sure I was just trying different things and seeing which one worked out.
Oh, yes. I understand that process. Now you're saying, okay, so right here, she's still, but you're moving the camera and the flash is what freezes her, clearly, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Copy that. And then in the motion, because it's a LED and not as strong of a light, is where you're getting that blur because you're moving the camera and dragging the shutter a little bit there.
Yeah, exactly. And probably using the tripod here comes in handy because with that 1/4 second shutter speed, as long as the tripod's, Alan would have had the tripod head loose left or right. And so then my ghost image isn't, wobbling. It's
Up and down.
completely, yeah, it's completely correct horizontally.
Yeah, it looks really good. That's why I was like, oh, this is cool. And I can
Thanks.
I could see
And
how someone could easily mess this up.
well, and part of that is giving somewhere for the ghost image to live. So the
Mm,
ghost image, the reason why the LED light is on camera right and the other light is on camera, the flash is on camera left, is because I needed to create shadows from the flashlight, if you will, in order to have a space for the ghost image to live.
mm. So not having her totally evenly lit on both sides. So
Yeah,
basically,
and
oh, go ahead.
yeah, and I'm not sure if I don't what I'm saying is small, so I'm not sure if it's like if that is as critical in this image. The same day I shot a photo of a guy and I did it as a close-up and I actually had the ghost image overlapping the part of his face that was in shadow.
Oh, well, this is very cool.
Thank you.
Have you taught any of this in any of your workshops or no? Like this particular kind of a trick?
think I think
Just
we
curious.
tried it once, but I'm not. I think so once. The reason would be is that the LED, I don't bring this LED light with me when I travel. So I think I did it once in my studio, but I'm not remembering exactly.
So you like experimenting between LED and flash?
So when I got this particular day, that is definitely what I was doing, was using this drag flash technique and doing that. A lot of the times now, what I'll end up doing is I'll use Pavo tubes in order to create what will look like gelled edge lighting on a person, and then I'll use a flash at very low power to light their face.
Oh,
So yeah, so that way I can get the softness of the normal flash modifier, but I can very easily get, edge highlighting that's colored on the person with minimal effort. It's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. The word efficient isn't easy, quick. It's a lot faster than
yeah,
maybe gelling a softbox, for instance.
totally.
Just
Yeah,
just
that's so
using
annoying.
those tubes to dial in the color that you want.
And then obviously dropping the power in the key light, right? Since
Yeah, like the key
LED
light
work.
is usually like disgustingly low, and the ISO is usually a little high.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
it's not as good as using only flash, but it is quicker.
100%. And you just need that one clean shot, brother. He said second curtain, Rion says.
Yes, definitely was second rear curtain sync. So that
Copy that.
means that at the end of the exposure, the flash fired.
And I think he just talked about that right there. Flash with modeling light with second curtain drag. Is that about right there?
Yeah,
That's
so I believe usually people will see the term as rear curtain sync, but
oh
that
yeah.
is the second curtain of the shutter. Um,
Damn, I like that.
hmm,
Look at that. I love the outside light
do-
is well balanced and looking sharp as a tack.
Thank you. Yeah, do you have that's one of those instances where I would have shot at f2 or 85 1.2 or the 28 to 70 at f2. Um, do you have a Z8 or a Z9?
I have a Z8 and a Z6 III.
So could you do that with the Z8 with the electronic only shutter?
I
Or
haven't
would
used
that mixing LED thing, drag
uh
flash LED thing cause
I did
problems?
okay. I'm trying to remember the last time when I used LED. What the heck did I use for that key light? I think I used all LED though. So what you're doing, I understand the process of what you're doing, but I haven't used either the Z9 or the Z8 in that particular fashion with the shutter drag, etc. But I have obviously used it for shooting LED, etc. So it's either or, like either I use monolights or I used LED. So, but now that you're talking about this, I might experiment and give it a shot. And
Because
just
I don't think it's too important if the flash fires at the beginning or the end of the exposure, so long as um, so long as you do the movement the correct direction. So
so the
I don't
movement.
remember which one was the correct direction in the shot,
Uh-huh,
but I
uh-huh.
know that like there is a correct direction and a wrong direction, because if you go the wrong way, your ghost image will overlap your person, and if you go the right way, it will drag behind them.
Yeah,
So
I think let me go back to the photo here. I'm gonna assume, okay, and we all know what assume does. Hold on, let me get to this one. I like this one. You went right here. It's from right to left, right? And it and your LED trailed behind her, right? So you went and it like boop and it caught her. I could be wrong, John. Feel free to call me wrong on my own show. Please do that. You know what I mean? So
well,
like you
I'm
went from
thinking
right
it might
to
be
left.
left or right, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever. It's all good. You're the one who took it.
No, wait, I think you're right.
I think, like you went and then because then that would follow. Then the trail would be left to right since you went from right to left. And then it anyway, it came out fantastic, bro. I don't
This
know
is
what
like doing math on TV. You shouldn't do it.
would you say math on TV? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I hated math. Until I got into photography. Who would have thought? These other ones are great. I like this one here. So you shot high speed sync with this one?
Yeah, exactly. So, um, and just use one light.
Oh, okay. So really it's
Yeah.
the ambient the light coming through the windows that did the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like this one. It's nice and clean. And oh, this one you're just having some
Thank you.
fun. This one reminds like Hollywood right here. I like that.
I
Uh
shot that the week that I met you. Only
is it?
after I drove from Oakland to LA, I shot that in LA.
Oh, shout out to 2019. There you go. Yeah, that was good times. So you went down to LA right after that?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, these are cool. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious what's
Like I
in
said,
there.
your execution is really, really remarkable. It's very clean.
Thank
You have
you.
a very distinct style. Like there were times I've seen your photos pop up somewhere, Google or Pinterest or something, right? And I'm like, oh, that's John Green. And then boop, and sure enough, it goes right back to you. And
Oh,
which is great. I mean, you do
thank
have that.
you. Oh, could you try to go to the lifestyle gallery? I think
Sure.
that if you back up one, I think there's a rear curtain sink shot in there.
Okay, let's take a look. See.
So we're looking for a high school golfer.
High school golfer.
No, there isn't. Okay, never mind. Although what is in there, there was a shot that I did where I had LEDs attached to a golf club, and I shot at maybe 2.5 seconds. And so I shot the entire swing of the golf club, and then at the end, the flash fired. So,
Oh,
but what I just saw on that page though is there's a guy throwing cards, um, black eye against gold. Yeah.
that.
So this is the same setup as earlier, where we had the circle reflection in his eyes,
Mhm.
and I feel like I kind of screwed up here in that I would have liked to have had the um, I think the white covers one pupil but not the other, the
Yes.
white circle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but this just happened to be like the best moment with the card toss.
Yeah,
So
the fingers and everything, and the way the cards are.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like Kenny Rogers. You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Sometimes it's like that. But I do love the color contrast, the balance of the color. That's
Thank you.
really I think photographers should really concentrate as color as part of their composition and how it impacts the overall image when it comes to the viewer. And this is a great example right here. Because even though he's wearing black, it actually he actually pops from it. Like black is, normally you'd think, oh, something pop is a brighter color. But in this case, to me, I could be dumb and wrong. Um, it works for here, right? The way he just pulls from the background. I
I
think
was
he
actually giving someone a critique today, and a lot of their shots, they had a situation where someone had dark hair and they were shooting outside, and the background behind their head just happened to be dark trees. Whereas in a slightly different part of the frame, there were light trees.
oh,
And so just moving a foot to one side or the other could greatly change where the head was positioned on the background and really cause that person to stand out. Um, Whereas we might just not be thinking about it. So
oh,
sometimes you might have a black hat on a black background, and then you need to use a hair light to make the hat slightly brighter than the background.
hmm.
But you don't really need it sometimes. There is one, I think, in this shot, but let's just say for the sake of argument, um, you don't really need it if the background is significantly lighter, or a different color than the hair, so
Totally.
that things will stand out on their own.
Yeah, the contrast, and that also goes back to what you were kind of playing on that when you were talking about the color wheel and whatnot, and understanding which colors could kind of help do that naturally without even lighting it. But this one worked out. I love the tones, and it works really, really well with his skin tone. I think the backdrop is what's killing it. It's really nice. Is
Thank
that a
you.
is that a canvas backdrop or no?
Yeah, this one is.
I love that color. That's kind of like a whiskey or bourbon or something. Uh, that sounds like a personal issue. Hello?
That's later.
Oh, exactly. All right. Let's see if there's any last minute questions, everybody, because we are, you know what? I told John, I said this is gonna be an hour situation, and we probably could have went longer. So, but we do have things to do and a life to get back to. Everybody, please get in any last minute questions. Yes, E of Sue, I sold the Z9. Can you believe that? I sold the Z9, and I am waiting to see what good full frame mirrorless camera, Panasonic or um, pretty much them, is gonna come out with, because I want a dedicated cinema camera that's like semi-affordable.
So was it just not offering you something that the Z8 wasn't offering you?
The Z9 was offering everything the Z excuse me, I'm so sorry. The Z8 was hold on. There we go. The Z8 was offering everything the Z9 was giving me minus the grip, right? And um and I have the Z6 III, and the Z6 III is a fantastic complementary to any of those two cameras. And I was like, I was looking at my style of photography, and back to what you were saying earlier with f4 lenses, and like, look at the work I'm doing. No one cares about f4 because I'm at f8. And that was kind of where I was at with the Z6 III and the Z8. I'm like, everything you see and people still hire me, it's like, and guess what? It's half the size, it's much lighter, it's easy when I'm on the street because I do more outdoor, and I got to think of security, right? And that
Hmm.
Z9, you pull that out, all of a sudden every security guard's talking about, is this a professional shoot? Blah 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 blah. And the Z6 III is more concealable, and the Z8 I can still use in the studio, which I do for the corporate or like, professional stuff. And the Z9 I just barely picked up after I got the Z6 III, and I was like, wait a minute, spec for spec, I get everything out of the Z8 I could from the Z9. And a buddy at Nikon was like, honestly, you'll be fine with selling that Z9. You got everything you need. And I did that, and I put it in an account or something, just waiting for that something big to come along. Cause I want something that's dedicated for video, like only. Just like the Z8 is dedicated for my photography, and the Z6 III is what I'm using now to stream with.
Okay.
So have you heard that Blackmagic Pixis 6K? So like they
No.
it's a beautiful full frame 6K open gate camera, but there are features I think they missed. And I'm looking for something like that. So basically, I hate to say it, I love Nikon, but there are some features in Lumix that I just can't get past. It's so good. One is
Hmm.
open gate. You know, you shoot 6K open gate, you could recrop it, not lose anything, and post it on whatever. I like shooting just
Yeah.
one piece of media. Another thing is anamorphic support. I love anamorphic, and Panasonic built in. You just switch it, de-squeeze internal, and there you go. So, but
Yeah, I
Nikon,
think I would rather shoot 6K than 8K. I could
100%.
totally see an argument for punching in, but shooting, is it 3 times the data to go from 4 to 8? It just
Yeah,
doesn't seem.
I never shoot 8K, but
Yeah.
what I do appreciate about Nikon is that you get ProRes internal. Okay, so you get that. I don't shoot ProRes internal, but for those that do need it, it's there internally. I think that the next level of Lumix, when they really come out, it will have all that and then some. I think it will have 4K 120, zero crop, um, and look, they do unlimited record time. It's Panasonic just generally just has pro cinema features built into a consumer body. They almost
Oh, is
killed
Nikon still doing 30 minutes? Maybe.
I don't want to no, I don't want to say this, but I guess I have to. Uh, they don't have unlimited record time. And that's a big, big no-no for me in terms of like professional use, because I do a lot of let's say documentary work or testimonial style videos. And guess what? They can go on for 20, 30 minutes. I don't want to have to worry about it overheating. And Panasonic has built-in fans. And that right there is a game changer. That's why you could do 4K,
Okay.
4K 60 at unlimited. And I've done that. I've done it for 2 or 3 hours, and it doesn't even slightly warm up. And that's a game changer professionally when you're on set. And plus, the in-body stabilization is remarkable. It's crazy what they do with Panasonic's in-body stabilization. So I think if Panasonic and Lumix and Nikon came out with a camera, had a baby, had a camera, it would be the ultimate camera, quite honestly. But so with that said, I just didn't feel a need for the Z9, and so I took that money before I lost any more in value, and just put it away. And when that one cinema camera comes out, an affordable red, I don't know. I almost jumped on red, but I think the Komodo X, as great as it is, the technology, I think a part 2 is about due. And when it does, I'd be pissed I bought it for 7 grand and then something new, you know what I mean? And like, oh, look, it does. Granted, it has what does it have? It has it doesn't have phase detect. It has contract based phase detect, which no person using Red cares about. Um, it's crop sensor, but I think technology now is so close to being able to deliver the Komodo X in full frame. You're almost like, why doesn't it? Right? When the Z8, the Z9 does, and everything else, it's just like so close. But then again, it is open gate. It does ridiculous codecs. The bit depth is crazy. It's a red. So yeah, it's that balance, man. And I'm just waiting. So shout out to the Z9. You will never miss a shot with that. Excuse me, that camera. When I shoot runway, bang, bang, bang every time. And I love the Z9. I think if you're doing birding and sports, that's the camera you must get. So that's my take. I'm sorry, John. That was a long-winded answer.
No, it's fine.
Let's see. Look at this. Look at this. People actually like what we got going on here. Thank you for the awesome episode, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Photography is on fleek. That they're talking about you right there, brother. Okay. And again, right here. Thank you for the awesome. Okay, we got that one. What else is there? Of course, we got a wow in there. There you go, because that's your work. Your work is wow. Tricked out Komodo X. Yes, I would love a Komodo X if I could afford it, even though it's discounted. Shout out to Red if they want to sponsor. And there you go. Nailed it. Bit depth. Exactly. Yeah, the bit depth is, I think that's one of the cutting edge advantages of that Red. But believe it or not, the S1H, when it came out, the Lumix S1H had a crazy amount of bit depth, and that's why I think what helped it to propel it to being the first mirrorless camera that was Netflix approved. And I started to look at like common denominators, like what is it? It can't be Sony's autofocus or whatever, these bullshit features they try to sell us on. I was looking and I was like, oh, it bit depth. And I looked at Red and it's like 500 something. And then you pick up a Sony and it might only be 200 or 150. And people don't know this stat because clearly they're not advertising and marketing that lack of. But we think it's fantastic. It's 4K 60. But no, the color, you want that color, that range, and of course the dynamic range. And that's why Red is amazing. And Sony isn't there yet, unless you get the FX6 or whatever 9 or whatever crap they're in. But anywho, there you go. We got another compliment. There we go. EFSU, thank you very much for tuning again. Everybody, real quick, let's go right over here. I want to show before as we get up out of here. There we go.
Look, I went outside.
Yeah, you went. Oh, shoot. Okay. We like that. Hold on. Something is trying to, what side is that? Cancel that. I don't know what. Oh, that's, give me 2 seconds, John. Something is going on. All right. There we go. Okay. I want to get to your workshops real quick so we can close this puppy out. Okay. Everybody, make sure you go head on over to John. I'm not, oh boy. Gress.com/workshops. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you in this chat needs to level up their game because guess what? I do. And as you heard from John, we all are still experimenting and figuring this thing out. Okay. And that's why it's important to have mentorship. So that means not just tuning into my channel, which you should every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but actually showing up to workshops because not only is John going to help you guide your journey to better understanding lighting, but people who show up sometimes have a trick or two, to share. And he has single-day workshops, 2-day workshops, and most importantly, he has a few coming up. I see in March. Oh, we got November, most importantly, right here. So that's right around the corner, brother.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And in Dallas, Las Vegas, and he'll be there at WPPI and Imaging USA. Am I right?
Yeah, and then about 2 months later, I'll have a workshop there as well.
Dang, look at you hustling and hustling. You are honestly, man. I thought I worked hard, bro. I shit you not. I look at your schedule sometimes, like when I see your stories and stuff. I'm like, bro, I need to step my game up. This guy is
Now, if you're
working.
seeing my story and you're seeing, well, I guess if you're seeing the schedule I put in the story, that's one
Yeah,
thing. I
yeah.
was going to say, if you're looking at the story and like, he just posted from New York today, he just posted from Atlanta yesterday, and wherever it was, like, no, that's just, I have 250 photos in my to post folder, and I
Uh-huh.
just grab whatever one matches the color scheme that I'm doing and post it next. So, if you ever are thinking about doing this, I definitely would say don't do it. So roundabout, like, I don't know, 4 years ago, I started posting where it's like every photo in the row is the same background color.
Oh, you start doing that color arrangement blocking, if you will. Oh,
Is this autofocus going to work? No. See, the
um,
autofocus in the R5 Mark II is too good. It's trying to keep on my face.
dude,
Yeah.
I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
So it's like all white, and then it's all blue, and all
Oh.
gels with blue, and all purple. Don't do this because
Okay, I was
you
about to say,
just
should we be doing that?
no, because I sit there and I'm like, okay, I got 200 photos in this folder. Which color background do I have? 5 to 6 photos that I can post. Um, can I make 5 or 6 different posts with this background? And can I have them so that they look good on the left and the right and the middle? And what if one doesn't land and it does poorly? And then I want to archive it. That's why I'm like, do I have 5 or 6? Because I'll
Oh,
have a post that doesn't do well, and then I'll just like pretend it didn't happen and make it go away. And then I'll post something else in the same color scheme. So
oh my God. You
let's
basically
see
gave
if
more work for
today's
yourself.
post is going to be hidden. Okay, so
Yeah,
so
let's see.
today's post has half the number of views it should have by this time, so it's going to be
Oh,
hidden. So
oh, geez. Look at that, folks. You're watching in real time.
yeah,
Hold on, let me go to I'm going to your Instagram right now.
so poor
Okay.
Tanya here is going to disappear.
Oh, which one? The purple one?
Yeah, the purple one.
Copy that. So you're saying
She's
don't
going to
do.
disappear from the grid. She'll still
Ah,
be on
okay, let me refresh.
my other thing on the Reels page, but I'll take her out of the grid.
Wow. So you're saying don't torture yourself? Is that the
Yeah,
moral?
well, and also it's like I guess I could hide some statistics sometimes, but I'm like, if it doesn't get enough likes or enough plays, then I'll take it off the main page because I only want like if you come to that page, I want it to look, I want everything to be like
Impactful.
uh like yeah, like really well received and make that color thing happen. So
That's kind of God. We got we're at 2 hours, and I said an hour. That almost walks into branding, right? Your approach to branding.
yeah.
Am I okay? All right, we'll stop right there. We'll stop right
No,
there.
no, that's okay.
Oh, okay. Because I'm starting to see that, and that's actually pretty. That's a pretty cool trick. I mean, I'm not going to do the blocking because that would drive me nuts. I don't know how you do it. Looking for 3 photos of the same background would absolutely drive me nuts. But the ones that perform well and showcasing those, do you notice an impact, like a direct impact to people who reach out to you through those sites, through those platforms?
Probably not. I just want it to look good if someone comes there.
Gotcha. And doesn't know you and is like, wow, this thing's must be
Yeah.
kicking butt.
But at the same time, I'm like, am I just, well, we're also our own worst editor. So sometimes we might do something, we might think it's an 8, we might think a photo is a 9, but it's really a 6.5. And the jury will tell you that.
100%.
So then I'm like, okay, well, if it didn't land very well, then all right, let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Copy that. I'm gonna.
unless it's a reel, then I'll leave it there. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. If it's a reel, I'll leave it in the reels part. I won't delete it off of Instagram. I'll just delete it off my grid.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of push it to the side, if you will. Nothing to see here. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, let's see that shot. with the girl in black and white with 4 lights, are those lights LED or strobe?
So I actually get this a lot. So anytime that I have a BTS photo and they see the lights are on in the BTS, they immediately think that it's LED, but it's not. It's usually, okay, sometimes it is, but 95% of the time or more, what it is that I'm using the flash trigger and a wide angle lens and I'm shooting the setup. Or someone using the same lights that are in the final photo is taking a photo of me pretending to take a photo. How's that?
That's what I say. I think that's honestly, when you do those, because I've done those too, that gets the most response is when you take the photo of with a wide angle lens, like you said, in the studio and not with your cell phone. That seems people love that way more.
So
And
it's actually how I started growing on Instagram, is that I was, a whore for attention, and I would notice that like, oh, and this is before there were slideshows. We just posted one photo at a time. And I'm like, oh, I get tons of likes when I post these behind the scenes photos. So I'll just make sure I shoot them on everything. And then I started noticing that like Famous BTS Magazine or ISO 1200 was more likely to repost your BTS photo if it was taken with a flash rather than taking with ambient. So then I started doing it all the time like that.
Dude, that's a
And
great
now,
nugget right there.
yeah. Yeah. So now what I do is I use a Pocket 3 from DJI to shoot my reels, just because it's more of my OCD-ness, maybe. It's like I would look at the video from my cell phone and I would see it on my computer screen as on the 27-inch screen. And I would be like, this looks noisy and I hate it. So then I was like, I'm going to get the Pocket 3. It'll look much better on my computer screen. And that'll make me feel better about things. But the Pocket 3 really does make really good video. And the other thing is that you can lock it onto the person and move the Pocket 3 around and it will track the person. That's really cool. Yeah. Plus, it shoots 3K video, so I can crop in a little bit like we were talking about 6K. I'll see if this is over here. All right, since we're doing favorite things now, all of a sudden. Hey. So a few weeks ago, I sold my 2 GoPros and I bought the Osmo Action 5.
Oh,
so
okay.
Which is barely visible here. But it's actually a way better file than I had from my GoPro 8. And on top of that, like I realized that it's the same exact, it might be the same sensor as the Pocket 3.
Oh,
well, the reason maybe what I should say is it's the same color science as the Pocket 3, because when you apply the Pocket 3 LUT to this camera's D-Log footage, it looks exactly the same.
Wow. So it's both
as if you
sensors?
Oh, I didn't hear your question. Sorry.
Oh, it's both 1-inch sensors, I'm guessing.
I think what I should have said is that the DJI D-Log to Rec 709 LUT for the Pocket 3, when applied to the Action 5, looks the same as if I applied their Action 5 LUT.
Oh, wow.
So it makes me think that like, so you can match the 2 cameras probably perfectly. And then I wonder, it's got to be like kind of the same technology. That's what I guess what I should be saying.
I got the Pocket 3 as well, and I went and bought the Hero 12, and it's a great camera. I mean, the thing's a monster, almost 6K. Like everything is 0 issues with it. But I kind of thought I should have went with the Osmo, because then, to your point, I could color match. And that Pocket 3 it's a Ginsu knife. That thing is amazing. And I love the microphone. You mentioned that part. That thing's great.
I was thinking about the microphone when you were talking about your microphones at the beginning.
Yeah, the DJI makes superb. Their mics are great, pricey. That's the thing. price it. And so for me, I do I do a lot of gear reviews. So it's like I want to recommend things that are also practical, not just like, oh, you should get the Komodo X, like no shit, I should, right? But it's not practical for everybody. And DJI makes great mic, but not everybody has $250, $300 to slap around for a mic. So that's why I
Mhm.
mentioned that other mic earlier. But if you
Well,
can,
upgrading, yeah, I guess I didn't even know how much it cost, because when you buy the Pocket 3 Creator combo, it's not that much more, but you're getting that mic.
100%. It's the combo is the only way to go for the Osmo, and you get the battery extender too, that little battery
Yeah.
extender. So no, that thing's great. If anybody's, let me ask you this. Oh my God, I'm killing you with this time. Let me ask you this though. Last question. Last question. How important it is, since we're touching on branding, how important is it for you to record BTS content of your shoots when it comes to branding yourself?
Okay, well, since I started, okay, when I was on Instagram originally and I started posting those BTS photos and I started getting attention, then I started building a subscriber base. And
Uh,
so then there became more and more people who were following me. And my original intent getting on Instagram was that I thought that I would, um, and this was true in the precursors to other social media. I was like, the more attention I get, the more people will know who I am, the more people will hire me, and then I'll make more money. So that was sort of my motivation. So I started doing that on Instagram, seeing that the BTS photos were popping. And I was like, I'm just going to keep doing this. What I didn't realize was that instead of getting a following of people who were hiring me to take their picture, I was getting a following of people that wanted me to teach them how to take pictures. And so
oh,
that's what led to me doing all of these workshops. And so for me, though, if I'm posting a picture today, a actual picture, it's going to get far less traction than if I have a reel of some sort.
really?
Um, just the sheer number of views that I get for each one, they're like, I could get 300 likes in, I shouldn't have used the number, but I could, the reason why is when I mentioned the like count that I don't like, other people would be happy with it. But because I have a number of people subscribing, when I get 300 likes, it is not performing well for me. Does that make
Popular.
sense?
It's all
Yeah,
relative.
it's all relative. Exactly. So, yeah, if I have a post that does well, I'm just looking at the last one. 16,000 people viewed it. That's an extremely well performing non-reel. If I go to my average reel is, it is hard for me not to get 20,000 people or 18,000 people to view the average reel. So
Mm.
my average reel is getting just as many views as a phenomenal post.
Oh,
So
I
so
see what
that's why they're like night and day. Like I don't think I'll ever again. It used to be like, I remember one time I had I had a post that had 10,000 likes on a post on a photo. That'll never happen. I think it was the guy throwing the cards actually,
Oh,
to
shout out to
give it
him.
a throwback. I don't think that'll ever happen again, because it's just that everything is prioritized towards video. So
Um,
it's almost like I joke, like during my workshop, like I'm sure I think it was this weekend, but it might have been the previous workshop. I was like, hold on, I got to shoot this BTS clip right now, or no one will ever see my photos. And
wow.
yeah,
So, but there was truth to that.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's absolutely true. It drives me nuts because I know that we're spending a huge amount of time, like getting the photo perfected and picking the right photo and then color grading it and then retouching it. And then someone sees it for a second and a half, which is frustrating. Um,
Yeah,
but better,
a-
I guess, a second and a half than never seeing it. So
and at least with
that's
the
the part.
video, they watch it for 15 seconds or whatever it is, so they actually the retention is there.
Yeah, or at least you just aren't going to show up in the feed unless you're doing it.
Mm.
So maybe that's the long answer to your question is maybe it's like, if we want to get people to see our content, we probably have to shoot some video content.
That's a word from the wise. I don't know how better off I could end this show, but that. So there you go, folks. If you're looking to brand yourself, you got to include some video. And we both recommend that Pocket 3. That's bar none. That's probably the best investment you can make to record content. And I love the eye track. It's actually pretty dang good. So everybody go check out that DJI Pocket 3.
Yeah.
And I think
with the creator combo only. Click on the link in the description.
There you go. See, now you're
in order to make
all
and
right.
it will help support Robert to make more videos like this one.
That's right. And at the very least, do not be a cheap bum. Make sure you go ahead and smash that like, that share, and subscribe. And for today only, it is free 99 to hit that bell icon to get notifications for more upcoming podcast shows like this here. So, John, as we wind down, what's the takeaway for folks? What do you want them to know about what you got going on, etc.?
It's dinner time. And
That's a late dinner,
I'm gonna
brother.
have to get something quick because we've run out of time for the food.
I'm so sorry, man.
It is time to watch Netflix to figure out if love really is blind.
Oh, in UK or?
Oh, just the regular American one?
Dude, I am stuck on Selling Sunset right now.
Okay.
Shameless. I am, what do you call it? Guilty pleasure for sure right now. But I totally get you. I got to get to dinner. When you do decide to come on out here, please feel free to jump back on a podcast, share, talk about what your workshop is all about. I'd love to help support that.
Great. So come see me here in Chicago in a few weeks. I'll also be in Las Vegas for WPPI, Dallas for imaging. Then I'll be teaching a workshop later in Dallas and in Las Vegas and in Charlotte. So you can find out more information at johngress.com/workshops.
Yes, make sure you go check them out over there.
It's almost like I made too many videos about this topic.
Oh, shoot. It's all good, brother. Hey, John, seriously, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a blessed evening. I'm going to close out the show, but you can skedaddle.
You too.
All right.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you later. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. Goodbye. All right, everybody. You already know with this song on, it means it's time for me to go. Actually, it was time for me to go, and John as well, about an hour and a half ago, believe it or not. But with all that said, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, like. If you want to see more interviews like this with today's leading professionals, you got to subscribe and smash that like button, okay? That's really going to help me out tremendously. Thank you, Vic, for coming on in. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be taking a break next week from the podcast because I have a sponsored video I got to freaking get to. But either way, the week after, we got something good for all of you. So make sure you go ahead and tune in. With all that said, you already know I'm your host, Robert Silver. And until next time, keep shooting, stay creative. Thank you for watching.
Join me every Thursday on YouTube for another live show of Let's Talk Photography. We cover the latest news, interviews with today's industry leaders, tips, tricks, lighting, cameras, and the business of photography. My weekly live stream is all about crowd participation. You're encouraged to ask questions, talk about the cool camera gear you've got or the camera gear you want to get. Hell, you could just join our open panel discussion during our Q&A portion of the show. The cost of access to Let's Talk Photography is very, very low. For today only, I'm hosting a very low price of free $99 to subscribe and press that bell icon to get notifications of my upcoming live streams. Now let's get back to the show.